The blood on Kade Zimmerman's shirt had dried to a rusty brown by the time he finally admitted to himself that he could not run this ranch alone anymore. He sat on the porch of his weathered cabin just outside Twin Falls, Idaho, watching the September sun dip toward the mountains while his left arm hung useless in a makeshift sling, and every breath sent sharp pain through his cracked ribs. 3 weeks had passed since the stallion threw him against the fence, and instead of healing, he seemed to be getting worse. The cattle needed moving to winter pasture. The barn roof had holes that would let in the November snow, and 50 head of horses required daily care that he simply could not provide. Pride had kept him struggling through each agonizing day, but pride would not save his ranch when winter arrived in full force. He had no family left to call upon. His father died 5 years back, his mother 2 years before that, and his younger sister had married a banker in San Francisco and left Idaho behind without looking back. The neighboring ranchers had their own spreads to worry about as autumn chores piled up before the hard freeze came. Kade had already sold off half his cattle last spring when money got tight, and he would be damned if he lost everything his father and grandfather built just because he could not swallow his pride and ask for help. The next morning, September 23rd in the year 1884, Kade rode his gentle mare into town despite the protest of his battered body. Twin Falls was growing fast, with new buildings going up along Main Street and talk of the railroad coming through within the year. He posted a notice outside the general store. Ranch hand needed. Room and board plus wages. Must know horses and cattle. Inquire at Zimmerman Ranch 5 miles northeast. For 3 days, nobody came. Kade forced himself through the necessary chores, moving like an old man though he was only 26. He fed the horses one-handed, scattered grain for the chickens, and tried not to think about all the work he was leaving undone. On the 4th day, as he was attempting to patch a water trough with his right hand while his left throbbed uselessly, he heard a wagon coming up the road. The woman who climbed down from the driver's seat was not what he expected. She wore men's trousers under a simple brown dress, sturdy boots caked with trail dust, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded her face from the afternoon sun. When she removed the hat, Kade saw dark blonde hair pulled back in a practical braid and clear gray eyes that assessed him and his property with the same measuring look he might give a horse he was thinking of buying. "You are Mr. Zimmerman." Her voice carried an accent he could not quite place, something European that softened the edges of her words. "I am, and you are, Clara Fischer. I saw your notice in town. You need help with your ranch." Kade straightened up, trying not to wince at the pain in his ribs. "I was looking for a ranch hand. A man. I can see that." Clara's expression did not change. "But I am here and I know horses and cattle both. I have worked on ranches before. No offense, Miss Fischer, but this is hard work, physical work. I need someone who can handle a full day of labor." Clara set her hat back on her head and walked past him to the water trough he had been attempting to repair. She examined it for a moment, then picked up the hammer and nails he had set aside. In less than 5 minutes, she had secured the loose board properly and tested the seal. "There. That will hold through winter." She turned back to him. "I am stronger than I look, Mr. Zimmerman, and I am willing to work hard. I also notice you can barely lift your left arm, which means you need help whether it comes from a man or a woman." Kade felt heat rise to his face. "I had an accident. I will be healed up soon enough." "Perhaps, but winter will not wait for you to heal and your animals need care now." Clara gestured toward the barn. "Your roof has holes. Your fences need mending. Those horses in the corral have not been properly exercised in weeks. I can tell by looking at them. You need help, and I need work. I am a stranger here with no family and little money. I will work for half what you would pay a man, and I will not complain about the hours or the conditions." Something in her directness appealed to Kade despite his reservations. She was not pleading or making excuses, just stating facts as she saw them. He studied her more carefully, noting the calluses on her hands and the way she stood with the solid balance of someone used to physical labor. She was perhaps 22 or 23, he guessed, with a strong build and steady eyes that met his without flinching. "Where are you from, Miss Fischer? That accent is not from around here." "Germany, originally. My family came to America when I was 14. We settled in Nebraska and started a farm, but both my parents died of fever 2 years ago. I sold the farm and have been moving west since then, working where I can." She said it matter-of-factly, without seeking sympathy. "I am good with animals and I am not afraid of hard work." That is all you need to know. Kade knew he should send her away and wait for a proper ranch hand to respond to his notice. But the cattle would not wait, and neither would the coming winter. His arm was not healing the way it should, and every day he struggled alone was another day closer to losing everything. "All right," he heard himself say. "Trial basis. 1 week. You can stay in the small cabin out back. It is not fancy, but it has a stove and a good roof. I will pay you $3 a week plus meals. If it works out, we will talk about longer term." Clara nodded once. "That is fair. When do I start?" "Might as well be now. Help me get your wagon unhitched and your horse settled, then I will show you around." Over the next hour, Kade learned that Clara had not exaggerated her abilities. She handled horses with quiet confidence, speaking to them in German and English both while she groomed her own sturdy draft horse and led it to the pasture. When he showed her the cabin where she would be staying, she simply nodded and set about unloading her few belongings. A trunk of clothes, some cooking supplies, and a small wooden box she handled carefully but did not explain. "You said you have worked on ranches before," Kade said as they walked toward the barn. "Whereabouts?" "Nebraska, then Wyoming Territory for a few months. I worked on a cattle drive last spring, cooking and helping with the horses. The trail boss said I had a natural way with animals." Clara paused to examine one of the barn doors, which hung crooked on its hinges. "This needs fixing before winter. The draft will make the barn too cold for the horses." "I know. It is on my list along with about 50 other things." Clara glanced at his arm. "How did you hurt yourself?" "Stallion threw me. Big black devil I was trying to break for a buyer in Boise. Slammed me into the fence rail and I broke some ribs, maybe cracked my collarbone too. Arm has not worked right since." "Have you seen a doctor?" "Doctor in Twin Falls said to rest it." "Rest is a luxury I cannot afford right now." "You cannot afford to lose the use of your arm permanently either," Clara said quietly. "But that is your business. Show me what needs doing most urgently, and I will get started." They spent the rest of the afternoon going over the ranch. Kade owned 200 acres of good grazing land, with timber rights to another 100 acres of forested hillside. He ran 30 head of cattle, 50 horses in various stages of training, a flock of chickens, and 2 milk cows. His father had built the ranch up from nothing, and Kade had been working it since he was old enough to sit a horse. He loved this land with a fierce devotion that made the thought of losing it almost unbearable. Clara asked practical questions and took mental notes of everything she saw. By the time evening fell, she had a clear picture of the situation and had already started organizing priorities in her mind. Over a simple supper of beans and cornbread that she insisted on cooking, they worked out a plan for the next few days. "The cattle need moving first," Clara said. "If we wait much longer, we risk an early snow trapping them in the high pasture." Moving 30 head with one good arm between us will not be easy, Cade pointed out. We have enough horses. We will manage. Clara's confidence was not bravado, just simple certainty. After that, the barn roof and the fences. I can handle the horses' daily care so you can focus on healing. I do not heal by sitting idle. No, but you do not heal by tearing yourself apart either. She met his eyes across the table. You hired me to help, Mr. Zimmerman. Let me do my job. Something in her steady gaze made Cade nod despite his instinct to argue. Call me Cade. If we are going to be working together, no point in formalities. Then you may call me Clara. She stood and began clearing the dishes. Get some rest. We start early tomorrow. Cade lay awake that night, listening to the familiar sounds of his ranch and thinking about the strange turn his life had taken. He had never worked closely with a woman before, not like this. The few ranch hands his father hired over the years had been grizzled cowboys or young men looking to earn a stake before moving on. Clara Fischer was something entirely different, and he could not quite figure her out. She spoke little about herself, asked for nothing beyond their basic agreement, and approached everything with a calm competence that was oddly reassuring. The next morning arrived cold and clear. Cade found Clara already up and moving, horses fed and coffee boiling on the stove. She had changed into practical work clothes, men's trousers, a wool shirt, and a leather vest that had seen hard use. Her hair was braided tightly back, and she looked ready for whatever the day might bring. They saddled up and rode out to gather the cattle. The work was hard and made harder by Cade's injury, but Clara managed her horse like she was born to the saddle. She anticipated the cattle's movements, cut off their attempts to bolt back to familiar pasture, and kept her mount under perfect control even when a young bull decided to make trouble. By midday, they had the herd moving down from the high country toward the better protected winter, grazing near the ranch. You ride like you have been doing it all your life, Cade said, as they paused to let the cattle rest and drink from a stream. My father believed in practical skills. He taught me to ride, to shoot, to handle livestock. He said life in America would be hard and we would need every skill we could learn. Clara's expression softened slightly at the memory. He was right. After he died, those skills kept me alive. I am sorry about your parents. Thank you. It has been 2 years now. The pain fades, but you do not forget. She turned her horse back toward the herd. Come on, we should keep them moving before they settle in too much. By evening, they had the cattle secure in the winter pasture, and both of them were exhausted. Clara cooked another simple meal while Cade tended to the horses, and they ate in companionable silence. Over the next few days, they fell into a rhythm. Clara rose before dawn and had coffee ready when Cade emerged from his cabin. They worked through the morning on whatever task was most pressing, broke for a quick midday meal, then continued until evening. Clara proved to be exactly what she claimed: strong, capable, and unfailingly reliable. She fixed the barn door and patched 3 sections of fence that would not have lasted through the first heavy snow. She exercised the horses systematically, working with each one to keep them from going stale during Cade's recovery. She mended tack, organized the barn, and even found time to clear out the chicken coop properly. All of this she did without complaint or fanfare, simply working steadily through each task before moving to the next. Cade found himself watching her more than he intended to. There was something compelling about the way she moved, efficient and graceful at once. She spoke little while working, but when she did talk, her observations were sharp and often made him laugh. She had a dry sense of humor that caught him off guard, and she was not shy about pointing out when he was pushing himself too hard. "You are favoring that arm too much," she said on the 5th day as they worked together to move hay bales into the barn. Let me handle this. You go check on the horses. I can manage hay bales. You can manage to hurt yourself worse, yes. Go on." When he hesitated, she added, "Stubborn will not fix broken ribs, Kade. Trust me to do what you hired me for." He went, but mostly because she was right and he hated admitting it. His ribs ached constantly, and his arm still would not bear weight properly. He had been so focused on keeping the ranch running that he had not given himself time to heal, and now he was paying the price. But with Clara handling the heavy work, he could feel his body starting to recover. The pain was gradually lessening, and he could move his arm a little more each day. On Sunday, their first full week together, Kade told Clara she could take the day off. She looked at him like he had suggested something absurd. "What would I do with a day off? Rest. Go into town if you want. I can handle the basic chores for one day. Town holds no interest for me, and the horses need exercising whether it is Sunday or not." Clara was already heading toward the barn. "Besides, we still need to finish patching the roof before the weather turns." Kade followed her, shaking his head. "You are as stubborn as I am. Probably more so. I am German, remember. We do not know when to quit." But she was almost smiling as she said it, and Kade felt something warm unfold in his chest at the sight. They worked on the barn roof together, Clara handing up supplies while Kade positioned himself carefully to hammer in shingles with his good arm. It was slow going, but they made steady progress. While they worked, Clara told him stories about her childhood in Germany, about the small village where she was born and the ocean voyage that brought her family to America. "Were you scared?" Kade asked. "Coming to a completely new country." "Terrified," Clara admitted. "I was 14 and everything was strange. The language, the food, the way people acted. But my father said fear was just another kind of work. You push through it the same way you push through any hard job, one step at a time until it is done." Sounds like a wise man. He was. Stubborn and difficult sometimes, but wise. Clara looked up at him, shading her eyes against the sun. "What about your family? You said your parents are gone too." Kade nodded, focusing on lining up the next shingle. "Father died in a barn fire 5 years back. Mother never really recovered from losing him. She just faded away over the next year, like she did not want to be here without him. My sister could not wait to leave this place. She thought ranch life was too hard, too isolated. She married the first man who promised to take her to a city. Do you hear from her? Christmas cards. She has a nice life in San Francisco from what I can tell. I do not blame her for leaving. This life is not for everyone." He finished hammering the shingle and reached for another. "But it is the only life I want. This land, these animals, working with my hands and seeing the results of my labor. I cannot imagine being stuck in some city office, pushing papers around and never seeing the sun." "I understand that," Clara said quietly. "After my parents died and I sold the farm, I tried working in a hotel in Omaha for a few months. I lasted 6 weeks before I could not stand it anymore. Being inside all day, talking to strangers, pretending to smile when I felt nothing but empty. I left and found work on a ranch, and the moment I got back to working with animals and land, I could breathe again." They finished the roof as the sun began to set, and Kade climbed down carefully. His ribs protested the day's work, but it was a duller ache than before, more manageable. Clara had already started gathering up the tools, and together they stored everything in the barn. "Thank you," Kade said as they walked toward the cabins, "for everything this week. You have done more than I had any right to expect." Clara shrugged. "You gave me a job when I needed one. We are even." But her cheeks had colored slightly at the praise, and Kade noticed the way she ducked her head to hide a small smile. That night, Lying in his bed and listening to the October wind beginning to blow cold through the valley, Kade admitted to himself that his feelings toward Clara were shifting into dangerous territory. She was beautiful in an uncommon way, strong and capable, and utterly without pretense. She did not simper or flirt or try to make herself smaller to accommodate his pride. She simply existed as herself, completely and unapologetically, and he found that more attractive than any conventional feminine charm could ever be. But she was his employee, and she had come here looking for work and stability, not romance. The last thing she probably wanted was her employer making unwanted advances. Kade resolved to keep his feelings to himself and focus on the work they shared. They had a good arrangement, and he would not risk ruining it by acting on an attraction she almost certainly did not share. What Kade did not know was that Clara was having similar thoughts in her own cabin. She lay awake thinking about the rancher with the broken arm and the fierce determination not to lose his land. She had noticed the way his brown eyes lit up when he talked about his horses, the careful way he handled even the most difficult animals, the quiet strength that showed through despite his injury. She had also noticed the breadth of his shoulders, the way his hair fell across his forehead when he was working hard, and the rare smile that transformed his face from merely handsome to something that made her heart beat faster. But she had learned hard lessons about trust and vulnerability. After her parents died, she had been alone in a country that was still foreign to her in many ways. She had worked hard jobs for cruel bosses, been cheated of wages she was owed, and learned to rely only on herself. Kade seemed different, seemed kind and honest, but she had been wrong before. Better to keep her distance, do her work well, and not risk the stability she had finally found. October deepened into November, and the first snow came early one morning, dusting the mountains white and making the horses frisky in the cold air. Clara proved her worth again and again, handling every challenge the ranch threw at them with steady competence. Kade's arm was healing properly now, the pain in his ribs finally fading to nothing more than a distant memory. He could work a full day again, and together he and Clara accomplished twice what he could have managed alone. They developed an easy partnership, anticipating each other's movements and communicating with few words. When a section of fence went down and 3 horses got loose, they worked together seamlessly to track and recover the animals. When a late storm caught them mending fence in the far pasture, they found shelter together in an old line shack and waited out the weather, talking about everything and nothing while the wind howled outside. "Tell me about breaking horses," Clara said as they sat by the small stove warming their hands. "You said you were breaking that stallion when you got hurt. What happened?" Kade grimaced at the memory. "I got overconfident, that is what happened. I had broken plenty of horses before, thought I knew what I was doing. But that black stallion was different, smarter, more stubborn and mean with it. He waited until I thought I had him settled, then exploded like a bomb going off. Threw me straight into the fence rail and tried to kick me while I was down. If my dog had not distracted him, he might have killed me. Where is the dog now? Old Barker. He died about a month before you came. Just old age, nothing dramatic, but I miss him." Kade stared into the stove's flames. "Losing him and getting hurt all in the same few weeks made me realize how alone I really was out here." Clara was quiet for a moment. "You are not alone anymore," she said finally. "I mean, while I am here working for you, you have help now. I know, and I am grateful for it, Clara. More than I can say." He looked at her, sitting across from him in the dim shack with snow building up outside the one small window. "You saved this ranch, you know. If you had not shown up when you did, I do not know what I would have done. You would have figured something out. You are not the type to give up easily." Clara's gray eyes met his, and something passed between them that neither was quite ready to name. But I am glad I came. This is the first place I have felt like I might belong since my parents died. The storm passed, and they rode back to the ranch in comfortable silence. But something had shifted between them during those hours in the lined shack. Some barrier had thinned just slightly. They remained professional and proper, but there was a new warmth in their interactions, a lingering of glances that lasted just a moment too long to be entirely innocent. Thanksgiving came, and Clara roasted a chicken since they had no turkey. They ate together in Kade's cabin, which was larger and warmer than hers, and for a few hours it felt less like employer and employee, and more like something neither of them dared to define. Clara had made biscuits and gravy. Kade contributed canned green beans and the last of the summer squash from his root cellar, and together they created a feast that would have been simple anywhere else, but felt like abundance after weeks of basic ranch cooking. "This is the best meal I have had in years," Kade said honestly. "You are a fine cook, Clara. My mother taught me. She said a woman should know practical skills, not just decorative ones. Cooking, sewing, managing a household, but also horses, farming, how to handle a rifle." Clara smiled at the memory. "She was very practical, my mother. She sounds like someone I would have liked to meet. You would have liked her. She was strong and did not suffer fools." Clara paused, then added quietly, "She would have liked you too. She always said to judge a man by how he treats his animals and his word. You treat both well." Kade felt warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the meal. "That means a lot, coming from you." They lingered over coffee after the meal, neither quite ready to break the spell of the evening. Finally, as full dark fell and the temperature dropped, Clara stood reluctantly. "I should let you rest. Thank you for sharing Thanksgiving dinner with me, Kade. Thank you for cooking it, and Clara." He stood as well, suddenly aware of how close they were standing in the small cabin. "I am thankful you came to my ranch. This has been the best few months I have had in a long time, even with the broken ribs and the useless arm. Having you here has made everything better." Clara's cheeks flushed pink and she looked down at her hands. "I am thankful I came too. Good night, Kade." "Good night, Clara." He watched from the doorway as she crossed to her cabin, a small figure in the vast darkness, and he ached with wanting to call her back, to tell her everything he had been feeling. But the words stuck in his throat, and he let her go. December arrived with serious cold and snow that piled up in the valleys and transformed the ranch into a winter wonderland. The work was different now, harder in some ways but oddly peaceful too. They fed the animals, broke ice from water troughs, hauled hay and firewood, and kept the buildings maintained against the weather. The days were short and the nights long, and Kade found himself looking for excuses to spend more time with Clara. He taught her to play chess in the evenings, hunched over an old board his father had carved years ago. She was a quick learner and beat him within a week, then crowed about it with a rare display of triumph that made him laugh out loud. "You let me win," she accused. "I did not." "You are just better at strategy than I am." "Good. I hate when people let me win just because I am a woman." Clara reset the board. Another game. They played 3 more and she won 2 of them legitimately. Kade did not mind losing. He loved watching the concentration on her face, the way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking hard, the flash of joy in her eyes when she saw a winning move. One evening in mid-December, a blizzard rolled in with shocking speed. Kade and Clara had been working in the barn when the wind shifted and the temperature plummeted. Within minutes, visibility dropped to nothing as snow whirled through the air in blinding sheets. "We need to get to the cabin," Kade shouted over the wind. "Stay close to me." They linked arms and fought their way through the storm, using the fence line to guide them. The 100 yards from barn to cabin felt like a mile, and by the time they stumbled through the door of Cade's cabin, they were both coated in snow and shaking with cold. "Get out of those wet clothes," Cade ordered, already shrugging out of his heavy coat. "I will build up the fire." Clara hesitated, then disappeared into his bedroom, emerging a few minutes later wrapped in one of his flannel shirts that hung to her knees and a pair of his wool socks. Her braid had come loose, and her damp hair fell around her shoulders in waves. Cade froze at the sight of her, the breath catching in his throat. He had never seen her with her hair down before, and the effect was devastating. "Is something wrong?" Clara asked, suddenly self-conscious. "No. Nothing. You just look different with your hair down." Cade turned back to the fire, busying himself with adding more wood to hide his reaction. "There is coffee on the stove, still hot." They sat by the fire with mugs of coffee, listening to the storm rage outside. The cabin felt very small suddenly, very intimate. Clara had pulled a blanket around her shoulders, but Cade could still see the curve of her neck where his shirt collar gaped open, and he had to force himself to look away. "This storm is bad," Clara said. "We may be trapped until morning." "You can stay here. I will take the floor, you take the bed." "I will not put you out of your own bed, Cade. We can both manage for one night." But her voice was slightly unsteady, and Cade realized she was nervous. Not afraid of the storm, but nervous about being alone with him in such close quarters. "Clara." He waited until she looked at him. "You are safe with me. I want you to know that. Whatever happens, wherever you are safe with me." Something in her expression softened, some long-held tension releasing. "I know that. I have known it for a while now. You are a good man, Kade Zimmerman." "I try to be." He set down his coffee mug, aware they were approaching dangerous ground but unable to stop himself. "Can I tell you something honestly?" "Yes. These past few months with you here have been the happiest I can remember, not just because you saved my ranch, though you did that, but because I like you, Clara. I like talking to you and working with you and just being near you. I look forward to mornings because I know I will see you. I drag out evenings because I am not ready for you to go back to your cabin. And I know that is probably not what you want to hear from your employer, and I am sorry if it makes you uncomfortable, but I needed to say it. I needed you to know." Clara stared at him, her gray eyes wide and unreadable in the firelight. For a long moment she said nothing, and Cade felt his heart sink. He had ruined everything, said too much, pushed too hard. Then she said very quietly, "I look forward to mornings too." Cade's heart leaped. "You do?" "Yes." Clara set down her own mug and pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I have been trying not to feel this way. I told myself I came here for work, for stability, not for romance. I told myself I could not afford to have feelings for you because it would just complicate everything, and I would probably end up hurt and alone again. But I cannot seem to help it, Cade. You are kind and strong, and you make me laugh. You treat me like an equal, not like someone less just because I am a woman. You listen when I talk and you remember things I say. And yes, I look forward to mornings because I get to see you, and I linger in the evenings for the same reason you do, Clara." Her name came out rough with emotion. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes." He crossed the small space between them and cupped her face gently with his hands, aware of how fragile this moment was. Her skin was soft and slightly cool from the storm, and when his lips met hers, it felt like coming home. The kiss was tender at first, questioning, but when Clara's hands came up to grip his shoulders, it deepened into something fierce and certain. They broke apart finally, both breathing hard, and Cade rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "I have wanted you to," Clara said. And then she was kissing him again, and there was no more room for words. They talked through the night, the storm outside forgotten as they shared stories and dreams and fears. Clara told him about the loneliness of the past 2 years, the sense of being adrift in a country that was supposed to be home but never quite felt like it. Kade told her about the pressure of running the ranch alone, the fear of failing his father's legacy, the gnawing emptiness that had become his constant companion before she arrived. "I do not want you to just be my employee anymore," Kade said as the first gray light of dawn began to show through the storm-lashed windows. "I want more than that if you do too." "What kind of more?" Clara asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. "The permanent kind. The kind where you do not just work here, you live here, with me. As my wife, if you will have me." He took her hands in his. "I know it is fast, and we have only known each other a few months, but Clara, I have never been more sure of anything. You are exactly who I have been waiting for, even though I did not know I was waiting. Say yes." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes, of course yes. I love you, Kade. I think I have loved you since you were stubborn enough to try to argue with me that first day, even though you could barely stand up straight. I love you too, more than I thought I could love anyone." He kissed her again, and this time it was a promise and a claiming all at once. They were married in Twin Falls on Christmas Eve, with the town doctor and his wife serving as witnesses. Clara wore a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes, and Kade wore his father's best suit, carefully preserved all these years. The ceremony was brief and practical, conducted by a circuit judge who happened to be passing through town, but when Kade slipped the ring on Clara's finger, his voice shook with emotion. "I promise to love you and honor you all the days of my life," he said. "To treat you as my equal and my partner, to share everything I have with you, and to build a life with you that we can both be proud of." "I promise the same," Clara said, her own voice unsteady. "To work beside you, to love you through everything life brings us, and to make this ranch our home together." They rode back to the ranch through the crisp winter night, the stars brilliant overhead and the snow glittering in the moonlight. Clara leaned against Kade's side in the wagon, and he wrapped an arm around her, marveling at the turn his life had taken. 4 months ago he had been broken and alone, convinced he was going to lose everything. Now he had a wife he loved desperately and a future that blazed bright with possibility. The first year of their marriage was hard work, but joyful. They expanded the horse operation, with Clara proving to have an exceptional touch with the difficult animals. Word spread about the Zimmerman ranch and its skilled horse trainers, and buyers came from as far as Boise and even Portland to purchase their stock. They bought more cattle, improved the pastures, and added a proper bunkhouse so they could hire seasonal help when needed. But more than the success of the ranch, they built a partnership that strengthened with every passing season. They worked side by side through the long summer days and the harsh winter months, and they loved each other with a passion that never dimmed. Clara's laugh became as familiar to Kade as his own heartbeat, and he learned to read her moods in the set of her shoulders and the tilt of her head. In the spring of 1886, Clara told Kade she was pregnant. He lifted her off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing like children, until she begged him to stop because she was getting dizzy. Their son was born in November of that year, a healthy boy they named James after Kade's father. Clara proved to be as capable a mother as she was a rancher, managing both the baby and her ranch work with the same steady competence she brought to everything. 2 years later, a daughter joined the family, and they named her Anna after Clara's mother. Then another son, Samuel, arrived in 1890, completing their family. The ranch house expanded to accommodate the growing family, with Kade and Clara adding rooms and improving the property bit by bit each year. The children grew up wild and happy, learning to ride before they could properly walk, helping with chores as soon as they were old enough to carry a bucket. Clara taught them to speak German as well as English, and to respect the land and the animals they depended on. Kade taught them horsemanship and ranching skills, and to value hard work and integrity above all else. Through the years, the ranch prospered. The railroad came to Twin Falls just as predicted, bringing new opportunities and markets. Kade and Clara earned a reputation for fair dealing and quality stock, and their children grew strong and capable, inheriting the best qualities of both parents. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Christmas Eve of 1904, Kade and Clara stood on the porch of their expanded ranch house, watching their adult children gather for the holiday celebration. James was 28 now and running his own small ranch just north of theirs, married to a schoolteacher with 2 children of his own. Anna was married to a veterinarian in Twin Falls, and Samuel was still helping run the home ranch while courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Clara asked, leaning into Kade's side the way she had on their wedding night so many years ago. "No," Kade admitted, wrapping his arm around her waist. "When you showed up that day, I just thought I was hiring help. I never imagined I was getting everything I had been missing without knowing it. I was so scared that day," Clara confessed. "I had almost nothing left, and I was terrified you would send me away because I was a woman. But then you gave me a chance and everything changed." "You changed everything," Kade corrected. "You saved my ranch and my life and gave me a family I treasure more than anything. I love you, Clara, more now than even on the day we married. I love you too, always." Clara turned to kiss him, and for a moment they were young again, 2 people taking a chance on love in the middle of a harsh winter. Inside, their children called for them to come in and celebrate, and together Kade and Clara walked into the warmth and light and noise of their family. The injured cowboy who once could not manage his ranch alone had built something far greater than he ever dreamed possible, and the stranger who arrived looking for work had found the home and love she never thought she would have again. Years continued to pass, bringing new grandchildren and new challenges and joys. The ranch remained in family hands, passed down through generations who remembered the story of how it all began. But Kade and Clara never forgot the truth at the heart of their story, that sometimes the help you need arrives in unexpected forms, that love can bloom even in the harshest seasons, and that the best partnerships are built on respect, trust, and the willingness to work side by side through whatever life brings. As they grew old together, silver threading through their hair and lines marking their faces, Kade and Clara remained devoted to each other and to the land they had built their life upon. They rode out together on mild days, checking on cattle and horses with the ease of long practice. They sat together on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains and talking about everything and nothing, still finding new things to learn about each other even after decades of marriage. When Kade's health began to fail in his 70s, Clara nursed him with the same fierce determination she had brought to everything else in her life. She refused to let him give up, bullying and coaxing him through his weakest moments until his strength returned. And when Clara fell ill a few years later, Kade returned the favor, sitting by her bedside and telling her stories of their life together until she recovered. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren, the ranch house bursting at the seams with family. That night, alone together finally, they lay in their bed and held hands in the darkness. 50 years, Clara marveled. It went so fast. Felt like forever and no time at all, Kade agreed. I would not change a single day of it. Not even the day that stallion threw you into the fence, especially not that day. If he had not hurt me, I never would have put up that notice and you never would have come. So I owe that mean black horse a debt of gratitude." Clara laughed softly. "Only you would be grateful for broken ribs." "I am grateful for everything that led to you, Clara Fischer Zimmerman. Every single thing." They lived another decade together, stubbornly refusing to slow down despite age and aching joints. They still worked the ranch when they could, though their children took over more of the daily operations. They still rode out together when weather permitted, still sat on the porch in the evenings, still loved each other with a devotion that time had only deepened. Kade passed first, quietly in his sleep at the age of 83, with Clara holding his hand. At his funeral, the church in Twin Falls could not hold all the people who came to pay their respects. He had been a pillar of the community for 6 decades, known for his integrity and his skill with horses. But the people who knew him best understood that his greatest accomplishment was the love he shared with his wife and the family they built together. Clara lived another 3 years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, still sharp and capable until the very end. She spent her final summer teaching her youngest great-grandson to ride, passing on the skills her own father had taught her so long ago in another country. When she passed peacefully in her sleep at 86, her family buried her next to Kade on a hillside overlooking the ranch they had built together. The ranch remained in the family for generations, and the story of how it was saved became family legend. Great-great-grandchildren heard about the injured cowboy, who needed help, and the stranger who arrived and became his reason to heal. They heard about the love that bloomed in the harsh Idaho winter, about the partnership that built something lasting, about 2 people who found exactly what they needed in each other. And on quiet evenings when the wind blew cold through the valley and snow dusted the mountains white, you could almost see them there on the porch of the old ranch house. Kade with his arm around Clara's shoulders, Clara leaning into his side, both of them looking out over the land they loved with expressions of perfect contentment. 2 souls who found each other against all odds, who built a life together through hard work and devotion, and who proved that sometimes the greatest things in life begin with a simple willingness to take a chance on a stranger. The legacy they left was not just the ranch or the family name, but the example of what love looks like when it is built on mutual respect and shared labor. Every fence they mended together, every horse they trained, every challenge they faced side by side became part of the foundation of something that outlasted them both. Their children learned that partnership means working together toward common goals, that love means choosing each other every single day, and that home is not just a place, but the person you build your life with. In Twin Falls, elderly residents still remembered the Zimmermans, though Kade and Clara had been gone for decades. They remembered a couple who worked as one, who treated each other as true equals, and who never stopped showing their devotion even in their final years. Young couples starting out would hear the stories and be inspired to build their own partnerships with the same dedication and respect. The ranch itself changed with the times, adapting to new methods and technologies, but the heart of it remained the same. The land Kade's grandfather first claimed and his father built up and Kade and Clara expanded together still supported their descendants. The values they instilled: hard work, integrity, treating animals with respect, keeping your word passed down through the generations like precious heirlooms. On the mantel of the main ranch house, now run by Kade and Clara's great-grandson and his wife, sat a photograph from their 50th anniversary. Kade and Clara stood together, his arm around her waist, her hand on his chest, both of them smiling at the camera with eyes that still sparkled with love and mischief. Beside it sat another photograph, older and more faded from their wedding day. Two young people in their 20s, Clara in her simple blue dress and Kade in his father's suit, looking at each other like they held the whole world in their gazes. Those photographs told the whole story in a way words never could. Two people who started as employer and employee, who became partners and lovers and spouses, who built a life together that was richer and fuller than anything they could have created alone. They faced hardships and celebrated triumphs, raised children and welcomed grandchildren, worked until their bodies ached and loved until their hearts overflowed. The injured cowboy who once thought he would lose everything instead gained more than he ever dreamed possible. The stranger who arrived with nothing but her skills and her courage found a home and a love that sustained her for the rest of her life. Together they wrote a story that became legend, a testament to the power of taking chances, working hard, and loving deeply. And if you stood on that hillside where they were buried, looking down at the ranch spread out in the valley below, you could see the fruits of their labor still thriving. Horses grazed in the pastures, cattle dotted the winter fields, and smoke rose from the chimney of the ranch house where their descendants continued the work they began. Everything they built remained, not just the physical structures but the less tangible things. The reputation for quality and integrity, the family bonds that held strong through generations, the memory of a love that proved true love does exist when two people are willing to work for it. Their story ended as all stories must, with death separating what life had joined. But in another sense, it never ended at all. Every time a family member told the story to a new generation, Kade and Clara lived again. Every time someone looked at those old photographs and marveled at the love visible in every glance and touch, their legacy continued. Every time the ranch proved successful because it was built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared labor, their values proved timeless. The injured cowboy and the stranger who became his reason to heal left behind something precious. Proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, that love can bloom even in the harshest circumstances, and that when two people commit to building something together, they can create a legacy that outlasts them both. Their story was not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but about the quiet daily choice to work side by side, to support each other through difficulties, and to never stop choosing love even when it would have been easier to walk away. That was the real magic of their story, the part that resonated through generations. They proved that lasting love is not about perfection but about partnership, not about ease but about commitment, not about fairy tale romance but about two real people who saw each other clearly and loved what they saw anyway. They proved that you can find your home in a person, that sometimes help arrives in unexpected forms, and that the greatest adventures often begin with a simple willingness to take a chance. In the end, Kade and Clara's story was not unique because nothing like it had happened before, but because they lived it with such wholehearted devotion that it became extraordinary. They took the ordinary elements of ranch life, hard work, and human connection, and transformed them through love and commitment into something that inspired everyone who knew them. They showed that you do not need grand romance or perfect circumstances to build a beautiful life. You just need two people willing to show up every day and do the work together. And so their story lived on, told and retold, remembered and cherished, a beacon of hope for anyone who wondered if true partnership was possible. The injured cowboy found his healing in more than just physical recovery. He found it in love and purpose, and the joy of sharing his life with someone who made everything better. the stranger found more than just employment. She found home and family, and a love that proved some risks are worth taking. Together, Kade and Clara Zimmerman proved that the best stories are true ones, that love can transform everything when it is real and deep and lasting, and that sometimes the help you need and the love you have been searching for arrive in the same unexpected package on an ordinary autumn day. Their ranch stood as monument to their labor, but their love stood as testament to what two people can build when they commit fully to each other and to the life they create together. And that legacy, more than any land or livestock or money, was the greatest gift they left to those who came after them.